welcome to my channel. My name is Valerie and I am a writer. Today I will be reading for you another original work. It is an erotic story, but for YouTube purposes I will only be reading the non-compromising part of it. If you would like to read what happens after this, then you are more than welcome to access my Substack where my stories will be. Thank you. I hope you enjoy. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now, let's begin. Caribbean Pleasure by Valerie Morgan. It was nothing like I had ever seen before. People, masks, performers, and music everywhere. The air vibrated with laughs and a good time. There were so many people here that you could barely walk 3 steps without bumping into someone. I guess it was to be expected though. This was a festival after all. A festival held every year for San Sebastian, or so I was told. It lasted 4 days and we had come just in time to experience the last 3 days of it. All thanks to our modeling campaign project, which took us to Puerto Rico. It was a fun campaign, but I was glad we had finished it early. This festival was out of this world. I didn't think anything could top it. Leah, I heard my name being called. I turned around, finally seeing my campaign crew. As I was walking toward them, my foot caught on one of the cobblestones of the street. I began to fall. Fortunately, the fall was short-lived. It was quickly stopped by a hard surface and strong arms that circled around me. "Are you okay?" said a male voice with the sexiest of accents I had ever heard. I was about to respond when I got lost in the most beautiful brown eyes. The mystery man smiled, making my legs buckle. He instantly held on tighter, but didn't say anything. "Are you hurt?" the man holding me tried again. The tone of his voice made me snap out of my trance. I quickly straightened myself, but immediately regarded it as if I was no longer engulfed in his arms. I'm fine," I stammered. "Thank you. What's your name?" He gave me his enchanting smile again. "I am David," he said as he offered his hand. "And I will be your guide until you leave," he added, and laughed when I gave him a very confused look. "Guide," I said as I shook Ian's hand. "At your service," David said with his dreamy accent. I took to his eyes again, and it took all of my strength to not melt at his voice nor his eyes. It had turned out that my team had managed to get a local guide to help us enjoy our last few days in Puerto Rico. I hadn't known, but I wasn't complaining either. In fact, I was more than happy to have him with us. After a few more pleasantries, David took us bar hopping through the local businesses on the street as the festival raged on. I must admit, I spent more time looking at David's back than I did noticing where we were going. I didn't think he noticed though. Everyone was crowding around him and having a good time. I was beginning to feel tired from all the walking and decided to sit down at the bar we were currently at. To my surprise, so did David. "Tired already?" I asked him. David smiled, a mischievous smile, before responding. "I was going to ask you the same thing. For a while there, it felt as if you would never get tired of looking at me, so I was concerned when you sat down," David said with a teasing tone, making me choke on my drink. He laughed. "I guess I'm not as sly as I thought I was," I admitted. "It's alright. In fact," David said, "I haven't stopped looking at you all night either." I felt my face heat up at that, and I tried to cover my nervousness by taking another swig of my drink. "Would you like to dance?" David asked suddenly. "Dance?" I echoed. David smiled and stood up from his stool, making his way to me. "Reggaeton," he said as he offered me his hand. "What's reggaeton?" I asked, confused. David laughed at this. "It's what everyone here has been dancing since we came in," he said. "It's music that was created by very interesting Puerto Rican rappers. Here, I'll show you how to dance." He offered me his hand again, and this time I accepted it. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I couldn't say no to David. Leaving our group behind, we made our way to the dance floor. It looked like it was full, but we managed to find a spot. The couples were pressed against each other with nothing more but the clothes on their backs separating them. This is not what I would call dancing. I leaned into David's ear so he could hear me over the loud music. David looked around at the couples grinding on the dance floor and smiled at me. He leaned over to respond. "You're right, it's much better," he said. Without another word, he grabbed my hips and turned me around to face away from him. "The most common way to dance reggaeton is with both people facing the same way," he explained. His hand traveled up and down my leg, making me shiver in anticipation. "The next part is to get very close." David pulled me back until my back was against him. We were so close that I could feel him through his pants. I couldn't help but notice how perfectly would fit. His lips were against my ear now, and his hands were still at my hips, his fingertips grazing my inner thighs. Suddenly, I could feel the heat from earlier reach between my legs as they seemed to part open of their own accord. I heard David take a sharp breath and felt him push my legs together again. "Now," David whispered. We moved to the music. He began to push against my back and pull my hips against him as well until we were swaying and grinding to the beat. I could feel him as we slowly moved against each other. I wanted more, so I pressed more. His hips were moving towards me. I didn't want to stop grinding against him. It felt so good. He seemed to have the same idea because he slipped a hand around my waist, locking me in place. I leaned back as his lips began to graze my neck. I moved my head to the side, all while reaching back to caress his hair. By that time, he had one hand on my belly and the other one grabbing my inner thigh. I could feel the tip of his fingers pressing against my legs. The music no longer swayed me. Instead, it was my own desire that made me move and grind against David. He followed suit. The hand he had on my stomach slowly crept up, sliding over my top lightly and then caressing my arm. He slid his hand back down again, repeating his movements. This time, though, he lingered, causing me to gasp. "You like that?" he whispered against my neck. I nodded and was about to respond when he pressed his lips against mine. I kissed back, my body slowly turning to face him. David took this opportunity to wrap one of my legs around him. We continued dancing this way, face to face, even though it wasn't how the other couples were dancing. Before I knew it, I was very warm. David had moved to kissing my neck again and holding me still, pushing me more against him. We were still out when the sun began to rise. Even though I hadn't slept, I was filled with energy and desire. David and I had danced through the night, and we were now walking the streets of the old city. My colleagues had gone to bed for the night, and I was the last one out. David's hand had not left my back since the dance floor. Every chance he got to touch me, he took it, and I gladly encouraged it. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. I was having fun walking the streets with him, but everything was closed at this time. "I don't know," he said, laughing, "but I am so full of energy." "I know." "Why don't we go back to my room?" I said shakingly. I had never invited a stranger to go back with me before. I was both excited and nervous. I felt his hand, which was resting on my lower back, slide down and slip between my legs. David pulled him to me and smiled. "Only if there is more dancing involved," he said as he kissed my neck. "Definitely more dancing involved," I replied as David covered me in kisses and pressed me against an old cobbled wall. Want to know what happens to David and Leah next? You can go down and subscribe to my Substack. I will leave the link below or in my About section. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you in the next video. Bye.